The sky above the planet Vega 9 was dark. Not just night dark, but storm dark. Clouds rolled in thick and heavy, glowing with electric blue lightning that danced across the horizon. Far above, a ship dropped from faster-than-light travel. It was old, battered, and smaller than most warships in the galaxy. Its paint was scratched, its hull scarred by battle. It had seen too many fights and survived more than it should have. Inside the bridge, Commander Lucas Granger stood near the front window, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the world below. He was a tall man, early 40s, with short brown hair and tired eyes. His uniform was worn, sleeves rolled up. He had been awake for over 20 hours, but sleep was not an option. Behind him, the crew worked quietly. They were few in number, barely enough to run the ship properly. Most of them were young, some no older than 20. They had lost friends, recently, and the silence between their words told the story better than any report ever could. "We are entering orbit," said Ensign Dan Holt, voice low and steady. "Any sign of enemy ships?" asked Lieutenant Morgan Ellis, standing at Lucas's side. Morgan was 32, sharp-eyed and quick-minded. She had fought beside Lucas since the start of the campaign. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched into fists. Dan checked his screen. No enemy presence detected. Sensors show only light orbital defenses. Nothing we can't handle. Lucas nodded slowly. "They don't expect us to last long." "Do you think they know who we are?" Morgan asked. "They will soon." "Enough." He turned away from the view and walked toward the command console. The screen showed the planet's surface, rocky terrain, jagged cliffs, and wide mining fields. Once this place had been full of life. Now it was controlled by the Zarnathi Dominion, one of the strongest alien empires in the sector. Vega 9 was important. Not because of its people, but because of what lay beneath its crust. Minerals used to build warships, weapons, and shields. Whoever held Vega 9 held power. And now, Lucas and his battalion were here to take it back. "Prepare drop pods," he ordered. "I want boots on the ground within the hour." A few steps away, Dr. Nina Carter watched the exchange carefully. She was the team's lead scientist, late 30s, with glasses and messy hair. She didn't wear a uniform like the others. Instead, she wore a lab coat covered in grease and coffee stains. "You're sure about this?" she asked Lucas. When he passed by, he stopped. "About landing on a hostile world with 500 soldiers against an entire alien army? No, but I don't see another choice." She gave a small smile. "Good answer." He looked at her seriously. "How is the link holding up?" Nina hesitated. "It's working, barely. The prototype wasn't meant to be used in real combat yet, but we don't have time for perfect." Lucas nodded. "Then make it work." Down in the main bay, soldiers prepared for deployment. The air was thick with tension. Gear was checked twice, weapons cleaned, armor tightened. Squad leaders moved, among the troops giving final instructions. Corporal Tyler Bennett, a wiry man with tattoos on both arms, tapped the shoulder of a younger soldier named Chris. "You good?" Tyler asked. Chris swallowed hard. Yeah, I'm fine." Tyler smirked. "You always say that before a drop." "Because it's always true," Chris replied. Tyler laughed and clapped him on the back. "Just stay behind me and try not to die, all right?" Chris nodded. Nearby, 2 other soldiers, Anna Rodriguez and Kevin Parker, checked their rifles. "You think we'll make it out of this one?" Anna asked. Kevin shrugged. "We made it through the last one. Why not this one?" "Because last time we had a fleet, now we've got us." "Us is enough," Kevin said, giving her a grin. Anna shook her head but smiled. "You're crazy." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm still alive." Back on the bridge, Lucas looked down at the data pad in his hand. It held the mission orders, stamped with the seal of Earth Command. He read the same line again. Objective: reclaim Vega 9. Establish forward base. Hold position until reinforcements arrive. He knew the truth. There would be no reinforcements. The rest of the human fleet had been destroyed weeks ago during the ambush at FS3. Only his ship, the USS Sentinel, had escaped. Only his battalion remained, and now they were here. Not because they had a plan, but because they had no other way to fight back. "Commander," Morgan said, stepping beside him again. "You okay?" He looked at her. "I'm thinking about what we're walking into." "And what is that?" "A death trap," he admitted. "But if we don't go, nobody else will." Morgan stared at the screen. "Then we'll make it count." 40 minutes later, the first drop pods launched from the Sentinel. They fell through the atmosphere like falling stars, burning red as they pierced the clouds. Inside one pod, Chris sat with his knees pulled tight, gripping his rifle like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Next to him, Tyler leaned back, relaxed. "You really not scared?" Chris asked. "Oh, I'm scared," Tyler said. "But fear doesn't do anything except slow you down. So, I pretend it's not there." Chris looked nervous. "What if we die?" Tyler grinned. "Then we won't be around to care." Before Chris could respond, the pod hit turbulence. Alarms blared. Lights flashed. "Brace!" came the shout from the pilot. The pod shuddered violently, then slammed into the rocky ground with a deafening crash. Dust and smoke filled the air. The door opened. Outside, the world was cold and gray. Lightning lit up the sky. And somewhere in the distance, the enemy waited. On the Sentinel, Lucas watched the drop zones on the map. Green dots appeared one by one, each representing a pod that landed safely. He exhaled slowly. "They're down," Dan reported. "Good," Lucas said. "Now let's see if they stay that way." He turned to Nina. "Activate the link." She nodded and pressed a button on her wrist device. Across the battlefield, inside helmets and earpieces, a soft tone sounded. One by one, the soldiers felt it. A strange warmth, like a pulse behind their eyes. Their minds connected. Thoughts, feelings, instincts, they all shared the same signal now. Morgan felt it first. A rush of awareness. She could feel the heartbeat of every soldier nearby. She could sense their fears, their hopes, even their next moves. "Link active," she said into her comms. "Copy that," Lucas replied. "Move to primary objective." Below, the soldiers began to advance. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Every step was coordinated. Every turn, every pause, every breath matched perfectly. They were 500 men and women. But together, they moved like one. High above, on a Zarnathi dreadnought, the alien generals watched the feed from their sensors. One of them, General Korak, narrowed his insect-like eyes. 500 humans, he muttered, landing on our world. His aide spoke nervously. "Should we deploy the strike force immediately?" Korak considered it, then laughed. 500? Against 10,000 elite warriors? Let them land. Let them dream. He leaned back, in his throne. "We will crush them before they take a single mine." But as he watched the footage of the humans moving across the battlefield, something felt off. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were walking forward. Heads high, shoulders squared, like they already knew they would win. Korak frowned. Something about these humans unsettled him. Perhaps, he thought, they should have paid more attention to the stories, because even the brightest galactic generals feared one, human battalion, not because of how many they were, but because of what they could do, together. The Zarnathi strike force moved fast. 10,000 strong, all machine-enhanced soldiers with glowing red eyes and black armor. They dropped from orbit like falling stars, landing in perfect formation on the rocky ground of Vega 9. They were not normal troops. These were elite warriors, programmed, enhanced, trained for war. They did not fear death. They did not feel pain like humans did, and now they had a simple order. Destroy the human battalion. On the command ship, General Korak watched the battlefield through his viewing screen. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "This will be quick," he said to his aide. His aide nodded nervously. "Yes, sir." Below, the Zarnathi forces formed lines and advanced toward the human position. They knew where the humans would be. Scans showed heat signatures near an old mining base. It was a good defensive spot, high ground, clear sight lines, and cover behind rock walls. But it was also isolated, no escape routes, perfect for a trap or for a massacre. Korak smiled. Begin first wave. On the ground, Morgan Ellis stood behind a trench line looking through her rifle's scope. She saw them coming, hundreds at a time, moving with eerie precision. Their boots made no sound. Their weapons were already raised. She took a deep breath and whispered into her comms. "They're here." Behind her, Lucas Granger crouched beside a command post. He looked calm, but his mind was racing. He checked his wrist display. The link was active. Every soldier in the battalion could feel what the others felt. If one was scared, they all were. If one was calm, so were the rest. Right now, the link pulsed with tension. But not fear, just focus. "Hold your fire," Lucas said into the open channel. Silence answered him, not even a breath out of place. The Zarnathi came closer. 300 meters. 200. 100. "Now," Lucas ordered. The silence shattered. Bullets flew. Plasma bolts lit up the sky. Explosions tore through the enemy front line. The Zarnathi didn't stop. They kept coming. But neither did the humans. Morgan fired steady shots, each one hitting its mark. Beside her, Tyler Bennett worked a heavy machine gun, cutting down waves of enemies before they could get close. Nearby, Chris fired as fast as he could, hands shaking but body steady. He wasn't alone. Every soldier fought as one. When one needed ammo, another handed it to him without being asked. When one fell, another stepped into his place. It was like watching a single body move. Arms, legs, heart, lungs all working together, and the Zarnathi didn't know how to fight that. Back on the dreadnought, Korak frowned. "They are holding position," his aide reported. "What?" Korak snapped. "First wave is taking heavy losses. We expected them to break." Korak stared at the screen. The humans weren't just standing their ground, they were winning. He pointed at the feed. "Deploy second wave, flanking maneuver." "Sir, that's not standard protocol." "Do it." The aide hesitated, then gave the order. Across the battlefield, new Zarnathi units split off and began moving around the human lines. They thought they had found weakness. They were wrong. In the middle of the battle, Nina Carter sat inside a mobile lab, monitoring the neural link. Her head throbbed. The system wasn't built for this kind of stress. 500 minds connected at once. It was like hearing 1,000 voices whispering at the same time. She wiped sweat from her forehead and adjusted the signal strength. Outside, the soldiers felt the change. They knew the enemy was trying to flank them. Morgan turned sharply. "Left side, move!" 2 squads broke away instantly, setting up ambush positions in the rocks. The Zarnathi arrived seconds later. They never saw the trap. Machine guns opened fire. Grenades rolled down the hills. Smoke filled the air. The flanking force was crushed in under 2 minutes. Korak slammed his fist on the armrest. "How?" he roared. His aide looked at the data. They reacted too fast. Almost like they knew what we were going to do before we did it. "That's impossible." "Then explain this," the aide said, pointing at the screen. More Zarnathi bodies lay on the ground. Some hadn't even fired a shot. Korak's face darkened. "Third wave. Full assault. Sir, our losses are—" "Do it!" On the battlefield. The third attack hit hard. Zarnathi soldiers charged straight through the smoke, ignoring their dead. Plasma fire lit up the night. Morgan ducked behind cover, reloading quickly. "We can't keep doing this forever," she said over the link. Lucas heard her. He knew she was right. They were winning, yes, but barely. And the enemy had more. Much more. He looked at the map. "Fall back to secondary line," he ordered. The soldiers moved fast. They didn't run. They didn't panic. They pulled back in perfect order. Even while under fire, they left no one behind. Tyler helped Chris carry a wounded man to safety. Anna and Kevin covered the retreat, firing until the last possible second. Then they ran. Together. Always. Together. Back at the new position, the soldiers regrouped. Blood stained the ground. Smoke hung thick in the air. Chris sat down hard, panting. "They won't stop," he said. Tyler looked at him. "Doesn't matter if they stop. Only matters if we do." Chris nodded slowly. Morgan walked past them, checking the perimeter. "They'll come again," she said. Lucas joined her. You think we can hold? She looked at him. We have to. He nodded. Then softly he said, They don't understand us. Who doesn't? Them. The Zarnathi. They think we fight like aliens, like machines, like generals giving orders from far away. Morgan glanced at him. We fight like something else. Like what? Like people who trust each other. Morgan gave a small smile. Maybe that's why we keep winning. Above, Korak paced his bridge. The third wave had failed. His best. Units were in pieces, and the humans still held the field. He looked at his aide. Prepare fourth wave. But this time, send in the hunters. The aide paled. Sir, you mean the experimental units? Yes. But they are unstable. So are the humans. Korak turned to the view screen. His voice was cold. Let's see if they can handle this. In the human camp, the link buzzed with worry. The soldiers felt it. Something was coming. Something worse. Nina looked up from her console. They're changing tactics, she said. Morgan knelt beside her. How bad? Nina closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the signals in the link. Bad, she whispered. Lucas stood tall. He looked at his soldiers. Tired, bleeding, exhausted, but still ready. He spoke loud enough for them all to hear. They're sending something new, something dangerous. A pause. But we've come this far. He looked at each of them. We don't need more soldiers. We don't need better weapons. He stepped forward. We just need to stay together. A quiet spread among them. Then, one by one, they nodded. Tyler slapped Chris on the back. Ready? Chris took a deep breath. Yeah, let's go. Far in the distance, something moved. Dark shapes, fast and silent. The hunters had been unleashed, and soon, the humans would learn what real fear felt like. The night was cold. Wind blew across the battlefield, carrying dust and smoke. Lightning lit up the sky in flashes, showing broken ground, scorched rock, and the bodies of the fallen. In the human camp, soldiers rested where they could, leaning against walls, sitting on crates, or simply lying down between bursts of gunfire. They were tired, but they did not sleep. Not yet. Morgan Ellis stood near the edge of the trench line, her rifle resting on her shoulder. She looked out into the dark, scanning for movement. Nothing yet. But she knew it was coming. Behind her, Lucas Granger walked among his troops, checking faces, asking questions, giving quiet words of strength. He stopped beside Morgan. You feel it? He asked. She nodded. Something's different. Yeah, he said. They're done playing games. Back at the mobile lab, Nina Carter sat hunched over a console, fingers moving fast across the screen. Her face was pale, eyes dark with strain. The neural link was still active. It had been running non-stop since the drop, and now it was starting to break. Nina wiped sweat from her brow. Her head throbbed. Every heartbeat felt like a hammer strike behind her eyes. This wasn't how the system was supposed to work. It wasn't built for this kind of pressure. 500 minds connected. Fear, pain, hope, all flowing through one point. Through her. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. Then she heard a voice. How long can you hold it? She opened her eyes. Lucas stood behind her. I don't know, she admitted. We pushed the limits. We shouldn't even be working this well. He studied her carefully. What happens if it breaks? She didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, then we lose more than just communication. He understood. If the link failed, the soldiers wouldn't just be cut off from each other. They would panic, because for hours now, they hadn't fought like normal units. They had shared the fight. Every breath, every thought, every move passed instantly between them. Without that connection, they would fall apart. Keep it together, Lucas said softly. Nina gave a weak smile. That's the plan. Across the field, something moved, fast, silent. Morgan saw it first, a shadow slipping between rocks, barely visible in the dim light. Then another, and another. "Contact," she shouted. Gunfire erupted. Dark shapes leapt forward, moving like smoke. The hunters had arrived. They were unlike anything the Zarnathi had used before. Tall, thin figures covered in black armor that absorbed light. Their limbs moved too fast, their steps made no sound. One of them jumped straight over a trench, landing behind the human lines. Before anyone could react, it grabbed a soldier by the throat and snapped his neck. Chaos broke out. Soldiers fired, wildly, but the hunters were hard to hit. They dodged bullets like they could see them coming. Tyler Bennett ducked behind cover, pulling Chris down with him. "What the hell are those things?" Chris yelled. "Don't know," Tyler said, "but I don't want to find out." He peeked around the corner and fired 3 quick shots. One of the hunters staggered back, its chest smoking. It didn't fall. Instead, it turned and stared straight at him. Tyler cursed and pulled back. "Okay," he said, breathing hard. "Those things are scary." On the command ship, General Korak watched the feed with satisfaction. "Now we see what they're really made of," he said. His aide looked nervous. "Sir, the hunters are unstable. They have a high failure rate. Sometimes they turn on their own side." Korak waved a clawed hand. "Then let them prove their worth." Below, the battle raged. Morgan fired round after round, hitting one hunter square in the chest. It stumbled, but kept coming. She ducked as it swung a blade at her head, slicing through the air where her neck had been. She rolled to the side and kicked its leg out from under it. It crashed to the ground. She aimed her rifle at its head, and fired. This time, it stayed down. She exhaled. Nearby, Anna Rodriguez and Kevin Parker worked together, covering each other's backs as they moved through the trenches. Anna shot one hunter through the eye socket. Kevin threw a grenade that took out 2 more. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. The link told them what to do, where to move, when to fire. But it was slowing. Nina was struggling, and the soldiers could feel it. Confusion started to spread. Some hesitated, others missed shots. One soldier dropped his rifle and fell to his knees, clutching his helmet. "Too loud," he whispered. "Too loud." Morgan ran to him. "Hey, stay with me." He looked at her, eyes wide. "It hurts." She turned to Lucas, who was already running toward the lab. "Nina needs help," she shouted. Inside the lab, Nina gasped. Pain exploded behind her eyes. The link was breaking. She could feel it unraveling. Threads of thought snapping one by one. She reached for the controls. "Shut it down," she muttered. "Have to shut it down." Lucas burst inside. "Can you fix it?" She shook her head. "No, it's too far gone. If I don't stop it now, it'll overload everyone's mind." He looked at her. "Do it." She pressed the emergency disconnect. Instantly, the link went dead. Outside, soldiers staggered. Some fell to their knees. Others screamed. For the first time in hours, they were alone again. Morgan clutched her head, panting. "God, it's so quiet." Tyler looked around, confused. "What happened?" Chris answered, voice shaky. "We're disconnected." The silence was broken by a scream. A hunter had found a new opening. It lunged at a soldier who couldn't react fast enough. Morgan saw it and fired. Without thinking, the bullet hit true. The hunter collapsed. She turned to the others. "Listen up," she shouted. "The link is gone. We're on our own now." Some looked scared, others angry, but they all looked at her. "So we fight like people." Again, she raised her rifle. Together. Above, Korak watched the feed. His smile faded. The humans had lost their advantage, but they weren't falling apart. They were adapting. He leaned forward. "Send in everything," he ordered. "End this now." His aide hesitated. "Sir, the 4th wave is still recovering." "I don't care. Send the 5th. Back on the ground, Lucas met Morgan at the front line. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad," he said. "Nina's unconscious. She might not wake up." Morgan looked down. "Then we fight for her." Lucas nodded. He looked at the soldiers. They were tired, broken, but still standing. He raised his voice. They think we're finished. They think without the link we're nothing. He stepped forward. But we're not just a machine. We're not just a signal. He looked at each of them. We're people, and people fight for something real. Morgan joined him. We fight for each other. Tyler stood up slowly. Then let's show these bastards what real soldiers look like. The soldiers began to rise one by one, weapons in hand, eyes full of fire, and though the link was gone, they still moved like one. Far in the distance the next wave came, thousands of Zarnathi soldiers, and behind them, more hunters, waiting, watching. Ready? Morgan looked at Lucas. You ready for this? He checked his rifle. Always. And then, the enemy charged. The humans met them head-on. Gunfire filled the night. The war was far from over. But now they fought not as a hive, not as machines, but as warriors, as brothers, as friends. And that was stronger than any link ever could be. The battle raged through the night. Gunfire lit up the dark like flashes of lightning. Explosions tore through rock and dirt. Bodies fell with every second that passed. Morgan Ellis ducked behind a broken wall, her breath coming fast and hard. Her rifle was hot from firing too much. Her hands were shaking. Around her, soldiers fought like wild animals, desperate, angry, and unwilling to die. Tyler Bennett fired from a trench, yelling as he pulled the trigger again and again. Beside him, Chris did his best to reload and keep up. They weren't winning, but they weren't losing either. Not yet. We're running low, someone shouted. Morgan turned to see Anna Rodriguez holding up an empty ammo box. Then we use what's left, Morgan said. Save it for targets that matter. Anna nodded and ran off to spread the word. Morgan looked out over the battlefield. Zarnathi soldiers kept coming, wave after wave. They didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Like machines. And the hunters? They were worse. One had taken out half a squad by itself before being shot in the head. Morgan closed her eyes for a moment. She could feel the weight of everything pressing down on them. No link, no backup, no way out. Just this fight. And then, an explosion rocked the ground. Not theirs. Something new. Morgan turned just in time to see fire light up the sky. From the east, a line of Zarnathi soldiers exploded into pieces. Others turned, confused. What was happening? What the hell? Tyler muttered. Morgan saw movement. Shapes rising from behind a ridge. More humans. Armored. Armed. Ready. And at their head stood Lucas Granger. He walked forward carrying a heavy rifle and a look that said, "We are not done yet." Behind him came a fresh squad of soldiers, 40 strong, carrying crates of weapons, explosives, and something else. Something dangerous. Morgan ran to meet him. "You brought more?" she asked. Lucas gave a tired smile. "Found some old stockpiles in the ruins. Looks like the last crew here didn't have time to take everything." Morgan looked at the crates. "This is good. Better than good," Lucas said. "It's hope." On the command ship, General Korak slammed his fist on the armrest. "What is this?" he shouted. His aide stared at the screen. "Sir, the humans. They've found more supplies." Korak's insect-like eyes narrowed. "That doesn't matter. They're still outnumbered." "Yes, but now they're fighting smarter." "Explain." "They're using traps, ambushes, even the terrain against us." Korak leaned closer to the view screen. He watched as human soldiers moved quickly through the battlefield, setting up explosives, planting mines, and disappearing before the enemy could react. They weren't just fighting. They were planning. Thinking, ahead, using the land like it was part of their team. "How?" Korak whispered. His aide didn't answer, because he didn't know. Back on the ground, Lucas gathered his leaders around him. Morgan, Tyler, Anna, Kevin, Chris. They were all there, dirty, tired, bloody, but alive. "We can't keep fighting like this," Lucas said. "We need to change the game." Morgan crossed her arms. "What do you have in mind?" Lucas pointed to the map on his wrist display. "Vega 9 has weather control towers, used to manage storms for mining. If we can get into one, we might be able to turn the skies against them. Tyler raised an eyebrow. You mean, make it rainfire or something? Close enough, Lucas said. Lightning, wind, maybe even gravity shifts. Anything to break their lines. Morgan studied the map. There's one tower about 2 clicks west, heavily guarded though. Then we hit them fast, Anna said. And quiet, Kevin added. Chris swallowed hard. I guess that means me and the stealth team go in first. Tyler clapped him on the back. Look at you talking like a real soldier. Chris gave a weak smile. Don't let it go to my head. Lucas looked at each of them. This is our chance. If we pull this off, we don't just hold the line. He paused. We break it. The plan started at dawn. Small groups of soldiers moved through the rocks, staying low, avoiding patrols. The stealth team reached the base of the tower first. Chris led them, heart pounding. They moved like shadows, taking out guards one by one. Some never knew what hit them. Once inside, they planted charges at key points. Not to destroy the tower, to take it over. Inside the control room, Chris found the main console. He tapped a few buttons. Nothing. He cursed under his breath. Come on, work. Finally, the system blinked to life. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. He wasn't a tech guy, but he knew enough. He opened the storm menu. Lightning, wind, rain, heat. All of it, waiting to be unleashed. He looked at his comms. Control room secure, ready when you are. Lucas's voice came back clear. Hit them hard. Chris pressed the button. Above, the sky changed. Dark clouds rolled in fast. Lightning danced between them. The wind picked up, howling through the battlefield. The Zarnathi stopped moving. They looked up, confused, afraid. And then, the first bolt struck. A hunter screamed as electricity tore through its body. Another hit the ground, sending shockwaves through the enemy lines. Soldiers fell, weapons melted, armor cracked, chaos spread. Morgan smiled. Looks like we made it rain. Tyler laughed. Damn right we did. Lucas stood tall, watching the storm unfold. Now, he said. We push. Back on the dreadnought, Korak stood frozen. His aide shouted orders, trying to rally the troops, but it was too late. The storm had torn through their ranks, and now the humans were advancing. Fast, furious, and fearless. Pull back. Korak finally ordered. His aide looked shocked. Sir, pull back, regroup. But the retreat was already falling apart. Soldiers ran in all directions. Hunters were struck down by lightning. Tanks flipped over in sudden floods. The once unstoppable Zarnathi force was breaking. Korak clenched his fists. Those humans, he growled. Sir? His aide asked. Korak looked at him, eyes full of rage. They don't just fight like machines. He turned away from the screen. They fight like ghosts. On the battlefield, Morgan walked beside Lucas. They looked around at the damage. The storm had done its job. The enemy was in pieces. You think we won? She asked. Lucas shook his head. Not yet, but we're close. She looked at him. What's next? He thought for a moment. Then he said, we finish it. Before she could respond, a loud crack filled the air. They both turned. A massive Zarnathi dropship was landing nearby, not retreating. Arriving. Morgan frowned. New reinforcements? Lucas narrowed his eyes, or something worse. The humans took cover. They watched as the dropship opened and out stepped something none of them had seen before. Taller than a man, covered in armor, glowing red eyes, and in its hand, a weapon that looked like it could tear the sky apart. Morgan whispered into her comms, Everybody, lock and load. Lucas tightened his grip on his rifle. This is going to hurt. And the newest threat stepped forward, ready to kill. The new enemy stepped forward. Its armor gleamed under the stormy sky. Red eyes glowed like dying stars. It moved with slow, heavy steps, each one shaking the ground beneath it. Morgan Ellis tightened her grip on her rifle. What the hell is that? She whispered. Tyler Bennett crouched beside her, his face pale. "I don't know," he said, "but I don't think bullets are going to stop it." They watched as the massive Zarnathi war machine raised its weapon, a long, jagged cannon that hummed with dark energy. Then it fired. A beam of pure destruction shot across the battlefield. Rock exploded. Soldiers were thrown off their feet. Morgan rolled behind a broken wall, coughing through the smoke. "Lucas," she shouted into her comms. "We've got a big problem." On the command ship, General Korak watched the feed with cold satisfaction. "This," he said to his aide, "is the end of your little rebellion." His aide looked at the screen. The war machine, known among the Zarnati as Vornax, the last hope of fallen empires, was built for one purpose: total annihilation. "Sir," the aide said nervously, "if we use Vornax, there may be no way to control it." Korak smiled. "Good." Back on the battlefield, Lucas Granger pushed himself up from the dirt. Blood ran down his temple. His ears rang. He tapped his comms. "Morgan, status?" "Bad," came her voice. "That thing just tore through half our line." Lucas looked around. Smoke filled the air. Wounded soldiers crawled to cover. Weapons lay scattered like toys, and somewhere out there, Vornax was walking straight toward them. He took a deep breath. "We need to regroup. Fall back to secondary ridge." "Copy that," Morgan replied. But before they could move, another explosion rocked the ground. Vornax had found them. It fired again. Morgan dove sideways, barely missing the blast. Tyler pulled Chris behind a rock just in time. "We can't keep running," Tyler yelled over the noise. "Sooner or later, it's gonna catch us." Morgan wiped blood from her cheek. "Then we fight." Tyler gave a tired grin. "I was hoping you'd say that." Inside the mobile lab, Nina Carter stirred. Her head throbbed. She opened her eyes slowly. Someone had patched her up. Bandages covered her forehead. "You're awake?" said a voice. She turned. Lucas stood beside her. "How long have I been out?" she asked. 10 minutes, he said. "We need you." Nina tried to sit up. Pain shot through her skull. She groaned. "I can't bring the link back, not fully." Lucas nodded. "Just enough." She blinked. "Enough for what?" He looked at her. "To take down Vornax." Back at the ridge, the surviving soldiers gathered. There weren't many left. 50, maybe 60. Tired, bleeding, broken, but still standing. Tyler passed out the last of the explosives. Anna checked the detonators. Kevin sat next to Chris, who looked scared but ready. Morgan walked up to them. "Listen up," she said. "We've got one shot at this." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "You always say that before something stupid." Morgan smirked. "This time it's even dumber." She held up a small device. "We're going to lure Vornax into the old mining shafts. Once it's inside, we collapse the whole thing on top of it." Chris swallowed hard. "You mean bury it alive?" "Something like that," she said. Tyler stood up. "Who gets to bait it?" Silence. Then Chris raised his hand. Everyone turned to him. He shrugged. "Somebody has to do it." Tyler clapped him on the back. "Hell yeah, kid." Above, Vornax marched forward. Its path was clear. Crater after crater. Body after body. Nothing could stop it. Or so it thought. Then a single figure appeared ahead. Chris. Alone. Holding. A flare gun. He fired. The bright light lit up the battlefield. Vornax saw him, turned, walked toward him. Chris didn't run. Not yet. He waited until the machine was close. Then he turned and sprinted. Behind him, Vornax gave chase. Step by step. Closer. Closer. Until both disappeared into the mines. Morgan watched from the ridge. "Now," she said into her comms. Detonators pressed. Charges exploded. Rock fell. Dust rose high into the sky. And when the dust settled, Vornax was gone. Buried. Dead. Morgan let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Tyler leaned against a rock. "Well," he said. "That was terrifying." On the dreadnought, Korak stared at the screen. No signal, no movement, no Vornax. He turned to his aide. Send more troops. The aide hesitated. Sir, we've lost too many already. Korak's eyes burned with rage. I said send more. Before the order could be carried out, alarms blared. Enemy ships incoming, shouted a Zarnathi officer. Korak looked up. Dozens of human ships dropped from slipstream, fighters, bombers, gunships. And behind them, a massive cruiser. Earth Command had arrived. Late, but not too late. Korak clenched his fists. Pull back, he growled. His aide looked surprised. Sir? Pull back, all forces. And for the first time in history, the Zarnathi retreated. On the battlefield, the survivors watched the sky fill with Earthships. Laughter broke out. Some cried, others hugged. Morgan looked at Lucas. Looks like help finally showed up. He smiled faintly. Took them long enough. Tyler nudged Chris. Hey, hero, how do you feel? Chris looked around, at the dead, at the living, at the people who had fought beside him. He smiled. Like I'm part of something bigger. Weeks later, the story spread across the galaxy. 1 battalion, 500 soldiers, against an empire, and they won. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the best weapons, because they fought together, for each other. In the halls of Earth Command, generals studied the battle reports. They called it a miracle, a myth, a legend. But on Vega 9, the truth was simple. When humans stand side by side, nothing can break them. Far away, on a new world, a message was sent. From Lucas, to every soldier who had survived. This isn't over. The war is far from finished. But if we proved one thing, it's that even the brightest galactic generals fear 1 human battalion. Because we don't just fight, we live together.